What's up, cinephiles? My name is TJ, and welcome to Cinemateq. It's time for your weekly news wrap-up, so let's get right into those hot news stories from the film industry this past week. Starting off in China, where a number of films are being pulled from their theatrical releases due to government interference. Variety is reporting that the war film The 800 has been pulled from its theatrical release, and this is after it was already pulled from the Shanghai Film Festival, where it was meant to kick off that entire festival. Rebecca Davis at Variety has been reporting a lot of similar stories to this over the last few weeks. The Chinese drama film Better Days was supposed to premiere at the Berlin Film Festival back in February, but was similarly pulled from the festival. Then, its theatrical release date was also cancelled. The big question then is, why is this happening? Well, the Chinese government is reportedly tightening its control over cultural events and what gets made in the country and what is exhibited in the country. It's hard to say why Better Days was pulled, but we do know that the war film The 800 features both nationalists and communists in a pre-Civil War China. And according to other reports, the nationalists were shown in a favorable light. So there's a good chance that the Chinese government just didn't want to have their old enemies shown in a good light in a film that was being released in their country. This is not the first time that we have reported on China cracking down on the films that can be exhibited within its borders. We have seen in the past that certain distributors are being told that American films are going to be viewed less and less, and now that they are starting to crack down on films which show old conflicts, even as far back as the 1930s, it sets a worrisome trend where we could potentially see freedom of expression severely curtailed in the country, and that's something that we just don't want to see at all. So we hope those involved will be able to show the films as they intended them to be seen, and eventually one day not have to deal with government oppression. Moving on, David Lynch. He's mad. He's super mad. You wouldn't believe how mad David Lynch is right now. He's actually not that mad, but he did tweet out the other day that the latest restoration of his film, Lost Highway, is bad, and you shouldn't watch it because he had nothing to do with it. To quote the Twitter post that Lynch put out, "Dear Twitter friends, a Blu-ray of Lost Highway will be released very soon. It was made from old elements and not from a restoration of the original negative. I hope that a version of the restoration of the original negative will happen as soon as possible." Obviously, David Lynch fans did not want to hear this. Lost Highway has never been released in Blu-ray before, and this was one of the last films of his to be released in that format, so obviously they wanted to see it. However, it could be that David Lynch isn't being completely honest with his audience. Kino Lorber, the company that was charged with completing the restoration, released a statement a few days after Lynch made his initial claims on Twitter. They stated that they tried to get in contact with David Lynch so that they could secure his permission to actually work on the original negative. They weren't able to get a hold of him, so the only thing that they could do was talk to Universal and get their version of the master and work from that. They said that it's actually a pretty good master, so there wasn't really much of an issue. They then go on to say that they tried to contact him on a number of different occasions for things like approving the Blu-ray cover and approving special features, and David Lynch just didn't respond to any of it. So while David Lynch might be upset that he had no participation in it, it seems like it was just because he didn't know how to pick up a phone, which honestly is kind of understandable. I doubt David Lynch actually has a cell phone. He's way too cool for that kind of technology.
Did they try communicating to him backwards in a dream?
I've got good news. That the mule is going to.
This last little bit of industry news has to do with IMDb and their tendency of dead-naming transgender performers on their website. In 2018, a federal judge struck down a California law that required IMDb to take personal information such as a performer's age off of their IMDb page upon request. The state of California is now appealing that decision, and they have the support of SAG-AFTRA, GLAAD, the National LGBTQ Task Force, and other trans rights organizations in the hopes that the privacy protections afforded under the original law can be extended to trans performers. These organizations are trying to prevent a practice known as dead naming, where a trans person's original birth name are released without their consent. The practice has been described as violence against trans people and robs them of their own identities. All right, let's move on to some festival news, starting off with the Parasite. It's just taking over the world, as the name would suggest. The Korean film, which most recently won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, as well as winning Best Film at the Sydney International Film Festival, has now been added to the lineups of several more festivals all throughout Europe and the Middle East. The film has been set to premiere at the Munich International Film Festival, the Locarno Film Festival, and the Lumiere Festival, all of which are European-based. It will also be opening up the Jerusalem Film Festival. Now this does raise an interesting question. Where is it going to premiere in North America first? Presuming that it is being held back for the big fall festivals, we have to assume it's either going to be Telluride, TIFF, or New York, and it really just depends on who's going to get there first. The film will likely also be shown at the Venice International Film Festival, although I'm not sure if it will be entered into official competition considering the degree to which it's already been seen in Europe. Speaking of Venice, they've announced that Lucrecia Martel, the Argentinian director, will be the president of this year's jury. This is great news for the Venice Film Festival because Martel is a highly respected director all throughout the world. I actually had the pleasure of seeing her film Zama at TIFF a couple of years ago and seeing her speak. It was excellent, and I recommend everyone go see it. The jury at the Venice Film Festival is in charge of handing out awards to films that compete in the main competition of the festival. This is important because films that have done well in competition at Venice have traditionally used the festival as a springboard into awards season. You can look back at the last couple of years. The Favorite won the Grand Jury Prize last year, and Roma won the Golden Lion. So it's not just TIFF playing Kingmaker anymore, which is kind of nice, considering that the way that TIFF does things is bad and should be revised. And I'm going to cut this out, but TIFF kind of sucks, and someone needs to tell them. Moving on, the Lumiere Film Festival, which I mentioned just a second ago, have announced that they are adding a new selection to their festival that will feature only newly restored films. According to Variety, a jury will assess the work of restoration, the potential return of certain films, and celebrate those who keep classic cinema alive, which I can only hope means that they are going to focus on the people who actually do the restorations, who do the hard work. What's interesting about this announcement is that they're going to be doing this through a jury selection process. So whether you're a studio or a film library or an archive, if you're doing a restoration, you can submit it to them and they might possibly select it. I found this interesting because it means that they just won't be going to a company like Janus Films, who owns Criterion, and saying, hey, what do you got for us? We'd love to program it. It will actually have to be films submitted to a jury. So it kind of opens up a playing field to people doing film restorations who might not otherwise have been able to get into a festival like this, which I personally think is pretty great. And in a final bit of film festival news, Martin Scorsese's The Irishman will probably not be shown at the fall festivals this year. The VFX work that is going into the film in order to de-age stars like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino takes a long time to do, and Martin Scorsese wants to make sure that it's just right before the film is seen by audiences. There will be no previews like he did with Hugo back in, I'm going to say 2011, and the film will most likely just be shown to critics and then released to theaters as a typical film would be. So sorry, Mr. Spielberg, you won't be able to keep this one out of the Academy Awards. Breaking news, Cinephiles. Rob just said that it's coming out at Thanksgiving in the United States.
100% guaranteed.
That's wrong, you can blame him. All the other fake news is my fault, but this is on him.
If it doesn't come out on Thanksgiving. I talked to the producer. We're good friends, me and Joel?
Moving on to stuff that I want to put into my eyes right now.
Sorry.
Moving on to some movies that I want to put into my eyeballs right now. And honestly, I was thinking about cutting this whole section today because I didn't see a lot this week that interested me. But then I found a trailer for the movie Queen and Slim, and my goodness, it looks fantastic. The film is a new take on the Bonnie and Clyde story that stars David Kaluuya and Jodie Turner-Smith. Melanie Moustakis is directing the film, and she's making her feature debut, although she is no stranger to the entertainment industry. She has previously made around 60 music videos, one of which includes Beyoncé's Lemonade. So that should give you a pretty good idea of her pedigree. I'm showing images of the trailer right now. I'm really into this entire idea, and I want this to come out immediately, even though I think it's coming out in October or November, which sucks, but they're probably gonna try to get some festival dates out of it as well. Hopefully I can see it really, really soon. And I hope you wanna see it as well. And now we're at the end of the program where we just talk about cute stuff, funny things that we saw on the internet, right, Rob?
Is this a segment?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a thing that I like to do. It's like some of the news is depressing.
Yeah.
Some of the news is like film festival stuff that maybe people don't care about, but I care about it, which is why I talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just want to end on a funny, cool thing.
Like a hamster on a piano?
Hamster on a piano.
So, one of the original molds that was used to create the shark in Jaws has been fully restored and is being donated to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. The museum recently tweeted out some photos of Bruce from the beginning of the restoration process to the ending, and yes, his name is Bruce. That's a real thing. Rob, what do you think about the guy's name being Bruce?
I like Bruce's.
In any case, the restoration looks fantastic. Well done to everyone involved. And you can go visit Bruce if you want to in the year 2020 maybe. No one really knows when this museum's going to be opening, but it's probably going to be after the 2020 Oscars. So maybe next summer when we're in VidCon, we can go do that instead of doing other things like going to the beach. And that's it for this episode of the Weekly News Wrap-Up. Thank you for watching Cinemateq. If you like content like this, please subscribe to this channel. If you like the video and the hijinks that we get up to, like the video and we'll make more of them. We're probably gonna do that anyways, but we'd really like it if you liked it. So do that. Thank you so much. And yeah, Bruce. Bruce is a good name. I like Bruce.